Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Diane's been working with buyers and sellers in the Missoula market for over 25 years and shares her insights on the local housing market. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO. Hey, good morning. Thank you so much for making us a part of your weekend. It is Missoula Real Estate Today. Our thanks to Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate for providing the program and great guests every week. This week we're going to talk to Kevin Noland. Kevin is the owner of Damage Control, an emergency water damage response company, and more, as we will learn. Kevin, welcome back to the show, right?
Thank you very much. I enjoy being here.
You are a veteran of Missoula Real Estate Today.
I love it. The pictures on the wall of the studio are beautiful.
Yeah, I had those all commissioned. Well, a little bit of your background. How did you become the damage control guy?
It's an interesting story. I grew up around this type of thing, repairing homes and fixing things, and I always joke with my contractor friends that we just go in behind contractors that do it wrong and then make it right. But basically, there's a lot of education to have, a lot of learning. There's a lot of experience you have to get. You can't just put a screwdriver in your pocket, file some paperwork at the state, get a bank account, and you're in business. There's quite a bit of to do to get in there.
Well, I would imagine that would include investing in a fair amount of equipment too, huh?
Yeah, I like that part. I like to have really cool toys, really cool gadgets, but that's part of the game.
You bet. Well, you're on Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate's program. How did you two get acquainted in your relationship with Windermere?
Really interesting situation. We do estimates on properties, real estate things, and something came up where there was a mold problem in a house that Diane Beck had listed, and I had just introduced my company to that real estate agency, and they thought, let's give this guy a try and see. And that was 2007, 2008. It's been really good ever since.
You don't sugarcoat your business name, do you? Nothing too artsy about damage control. You kind of get to the point.
Well, I like that you know what you're going to get. When you make that phone call, you know who's going to show up, and you know what our intentions are. Yeah,
and I guess you're one of those guys that nobody really wants to see, but sure glad when you show up when they need you, huh?
Nobody ever calls to invite me to a barbecue. Darn it.
Well, you mentioned you love Grizzly football. Maybe we'll invite you to one of our post-game broadcasts. How's that?
I'd love it. I'll show up.
You can come on up to the booth and we'll talk football a little bit. I want to categorize what you do as a remediation company. Does that do you justice? Is that a fair term?
I always tease people. I like to think of it more as play hide and go seek with water, because mold can't exist without moisture. So the step that we cannot miss is find the source of moisture, correct that, and then you can take care of the mold problem.
Okay. All right. Disasters are disasters. Any of the emergencies you take on can happen anywhere, of course. But is Western Montana unique in any way in terms of a specific emergency occurring a little more than average?
It's interesting. Seasonal, there will be disruptions in your, if it's really cold, water does funny things in pipes, in homes. And I like to think about it. As long as we have domesticated water inside your home in a pipe, then there's always potential that I'm going to have a job somewhere. But the thing about Montana is our climate. We have 3 or 4 different climates. Mm-hmm. So summer, winter, spring, fall. Sometimes that's all one climate. It might snow tomorrow. Never know. But the different seasons allow different moisture levels in the air, and your house can do funny things if it's not insulated right, or if it's over-insulated, if the heat system isn't functioning properly, if there's not proper airflow in and out of areas.
Yeah.
So mold can grow almost year-round in our climate, which is awesome, I think.
My worst experience with one is we owned a house, a very small water tank, and it was actually in a closet, and the copper tubing was vertical that led to the shower, and the shower was just on the other side of the wall of this closet. And it had a crack or a leak up in the higher part of this tubing somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, you turn on the shower, now you've muffled the sound and you don't hear it. And when we finally discovered it, it was just, I won't say a disaster, but it was so wet and moldy and mildewy back there. Yeah. So sometimes you can be as conscientious as heck, but something like that can slip through the cracks, sneak up on you.
It's funny because even though you have a copper pipe that's stationary and fixed, it's still a moving part because you've got water flow.
Yeah, vibration through there and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing really good. My favorite question to ask is, have you had experience with water damage or mold? And then my next question I would ask you would be, what did you like about it and what didn't you like about it? So I might just turn over as the interviewer and reverse roles on you here.
Well, it's creepy. I'll answer it that way. Besides being unsightly, it can be a real health risk too, right? And it can spread.
There's obviously concerns when you have, and I don't know. I think my sense of humor helps set people at ease, but I just tell them you're not supposed to grow a garden in your house. That's what outside is for. Yeah, you don't want other living microorganisms growing within the walls of your
sir.
home.
Well, let's go over those health risks a little bit, Kevin. Oh, by the way, this is Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, and our guest, Kevin Noland, the owner of Damage Control here in Missoula. So I think it's time for our basic science lesson a little bit here, Kevin. We'll put you on the spot.
Ooh, awesome.
What are molds? Let's start there.
Well, let me ask you a question to answer that question.
Okay.
Have you ever watched bacteria or microorganisms multiply?
I have not.
It's not that exciting. I would rather watch paint dry. I'd rather watch grass grow.
Yeah, those are the categories I might have put it in.
Yeah. So living organisms that are affected by, there's 3 ingredients to grow mold. So you need standing air. So don't have any, ventilation or think of a bread box.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a food source, so organic material, organic matter, and you need to have moisture.
Okay.
So to mix that batch of cookies up, you'll get your mold farm. So it's living microorganisms. There's all kinds of different strains. There's probably, I get a lot of phone calls that say, "Hey, Kevin, I got black mold. Am I going to die?" Like, I don't know. I'm not your doctor. Don't ask me that question. But the color of mold, sometimes we think of, green mold, pink mold, yellow mold, black mold as that doesn't exactly determine the species and what type of mold it is. And if you feel like you're having health concerns or you've got mold in your house,
mm-hmm.
there are some steps to take, and one of them is visit with your physician, and then have us come in. We can compare notes with what the physician's talking about. Medical advice. Once in a while there is a concern, and I tell people if you're under chemotherapy, if you've had a recent organ transplant, especially lung transplant, you might not want to be in an environment with mold growing.
That's probably a really good example of one way that they do affect people, and I'm sure there are many ways, right?
Yeah, you bet, absolutely, and everybody's different.
Yeah,
it really comes down to, I don't know your health per se. You look fairly healthy. I'd probably try to arm wrestle you.
Yeah,
but your body is different than mine, and my immune system fights things different than yours. So I can't tell you how it'll affect you, but that your doctor certainly could.
Is it best of 3, 3 out of 5 for the arm wrestling, or
let's go 7 out of 10?
Yeah, deal. Okay. All right. Okay. And when we started the show, you kind of mentioned that you got mold, not necessarily due to water. Where can molds be found?
When I come into a situation and say this is the last place I thought I'd ever see mold growing,
yeah.
The next house I go look at, it'll be somewhere different, somewhere more. Molds are found inside, outside, and to not confuse the situation. And I don't like to create public panic, or you don't have to go put on a white containment suit and a full face mask if you suspect you have mold. You probably do, and you probably have mold outside too. And our job is to reduce the amount of mold below the contamination level of outside, so you have a clean, safe house.
Now, if it's somewhere that isn't necessarily visible, a part of the house that you don't spend a lot of time in, things like that, does it have any kind of an odor? Can you detect it other than by sight?
Your God-given sense of smell is the number one mold detection equipment on the planet. And you certainly can tell. I can tell. I've been trained, but I'll walk into a house. Or just 2 days ago, I was at eating lunch with my dad, and the restaurant we were eating in, we both commented, "This place."
Oh no!
This is bad. So the name of that restaurant is, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to. But, yeah, you can definitely detect it that way. That's what usually causes, if your house is wet, if there's wet building materials, it smells funny, it smells weird. And, again, mold can't grow without moisture.
Yeah. Good lead-in, because mold, it's not just the byproduct of emergency water damage. I mean, it can develop over time as an unintended consequence of, the moisture in your home or office. What recommendations can you share that can maybe help reduce the risks of that a little bit?
The areas that, as you mentioned, places you don't frequent a lot, attics, crawl spaces.
Yeah.
Most of the mold we come across was in a crawl space or an attic during the construction phase of the home. It still needs to be dealt with because as soon as you introduce moisture to it, it can begin to germinate and grow. So it's not a bad idea. Periodically change your air filter out in your furnace, your forced air. Take a peek and see if there's other issues, anything wrong in your crawl space or attic.
Yeah.
It's not common to just poke your head up in there. We don't build houses like we did when we go to grandma's attic. There's storage trunks and really cool stuff.
Right.
Well, we don't really build houses like that anymore. So you're right, it's not common.
Missoula Real Estate today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest, Kevin Noland, the owner of Damage Control here in Missoula. And all right, we'll move on from mold a little bit. Thanks for the science lesson, Kevin. You did a good job there.
Thank you.
Take us through the step-by-step process. Someone calls you because there's I don't know, water in the basement, let's say. What is the typical procedure when you assess the situation besides please get here right now?
Yeah.
I'm sure you get a lot of that, but what's the step by step?
Our really focus is to make sure the homeowner's comfortable with us, with our presentation, as far as the information I'm going to share with you about your house.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to make sure we can get along, I look for anything to do with Grizzly athletics. If they're a Grizz fan, everything's going to go well. If they're not, then I tell them, we can't get here for 2 or 3 weeks. You need to call somebody else.
You are a diehard, aren't you?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have to make this Missoula Real Estate Today and Sports sometime and have you back.
I'll do that.
Yeah. So you go through the process.
The initial assessment. What area are they concerned about? I begin my assessment as I'm driving up the road. I don't wait till I get in their front door to look at. I look at landscape, look at the structure, look at rain gutters, downspouts. If there's mysterious moisture getting into their house, where's it coming from?
Yeah.
I do pride myself in figuring out the hard stuff that other people can't. I don't think my wife would appreciate if I took a pay cut and became a detective. Mm-hmm. So I'm a mold detective. I call myself a mold investigator.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is to figure out that hard mystery stuff.
What are some examples of things that you see as you get closer to a house that might indicate what it is you're going to find when you get in there?
The biggest indicator is drainage. If the property has negative drainage away from the foundation, then I can rule out water issues from snow melt or heavy rain. Sometimes I look at sprinkler systems. If they've got a sprinkler that's continually watering the house, I tell them, you can water your house all day long, but it won't make your house grow. And you don't want to pay the extra property tax for a bigger house. But then I look at rain gutters and downspouts. Where do the downspouts terminate? I really love those beautiful decorative chains like that come off of rain gutters. But you have to look at where do those deposit the water. If it's being deposited within, 6 feet is usually the general diameter away from your foundational wall. If you've got positive drainage, those chains work good. But a lot of times, Kevin, I have water in my crawl space. I don't know where it's coming from, and it rained really heavy the last couple of days. That to me is an easy answer. We can figure that out pretty quickly.
A natural customer question is going to be how long is it going to take? I mean, I'm not saying you have not tried to scare them. They know they've got a problem. That's why they contacted you, and they probably have a pretty good idea of what it is. So you're not trying to scare them by saying it's a major health risk and it's going to spread really fast, things like that. But human nature is such that they're going to want to know, okay, how long is all of this going to take you to get it out of here completely?
And another additional question to that is, do I need to stay in a hotel? Am I safe in my house? So we do set the project up with airflow, with negative airflow, with filtration. We seal off, if it's furnace systems or vents. We just want to stop the spread of mold.
Right.
Especially once we get in there and start trying to remove that mold. Sometimes it can be disrupted and displaced and become aerosolized and get into their respiratory system. We don't want that.
Right.
So I'll answer that telling you each house is going to be different.
Sure. Case by case, depending on the amount. And
Exactly.
yeah.
But we try not to drag those out. Our crew is a little bit smaller than some of the other companies because we focus on, we get in, we get the job taken care of, we can move on to the next. And I feel like volume-wise, we can handle more projects because we're more efficient, we're quicker. So it does speed up the process. As long as it's thorough, we'll go quick for them.
Missoula Real Estate today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest, Kevin Noland, owner of Damage Control here in Missoula. I was looking at your website a little bit. You describe yourselves as drying science geeks. And so I was looking at some of the terms. Maybe you can go into some detail on those, like thermal imaging, flash extractors, and my favorite, injected-dry systems. Did I say that right?
Oh, you didn't. Nope. So I'm going to take that as victory one on our arm wrestling contest.
Okay.
Injected dry.
Injected dry.
Yeah. So
just all the cool drying geek stuff you have, and why is it so important?
That's some of the cool stuff I was telling you I love about my
that injected dry. Okay,
dry.
Makes a lot more sense that way. Yeah,
and that's trademarked, so we don't want to get in trouble there. But the infrared imaging.
Yeah.
You've seen the search helicopters that have FLIR. Military use that technology looking for bad guys.
Yeah.
We also use that to look for cold spots and moisture temperature variances in a wall. We can take. I should update our website. I don't think I've touched that since 2009.
Yeah, might not be a bad idea, but
there is, a way for us to say exactly where in our hide and go seek game against water. I can show you exactly where water's at in the wall because of the temperature variance. And water gets to room temperature quicker than building material. So sometimes we need to change the heat level in the house, warm it up really quick, and then we can see where the water is. That's cool. So infrared imaging just shows temperature variances.
Okay, so what are you finding when you see that temperature variance? Can you say to the customer, you can determine, okay, that's where water is dripping down on the inside of the wall? Is that
so similar to your situation with a leak in the wall?
Mm-hmm.
Well, where's it coming from? I could tell you that wall's wetter than this wall, so there's got to be a pipe issue right behind.
Sure.
The
Okay.
Yeah, it helps us pinpoint and locate that exactly. So do you want to talk about
flash extractors?
So technology, I love it because it changes all the time. I don't love it because then I have to get my checkbook out. A flash extractor is a device that it's used to compress carpet and padding and building material so we can push air out while we're sucking water out of a wet structure or wet surface.
Okay.
So it's a really cool little toy. Some people would look at it as it removes 87% of the water can be, if you had a water heater break, it flooded your basement, we can physically remove 87% of the water.
Man.
That leaves just a small...
Just with that, with the flash extractor.
Exactly. And then that leaves a very small percentage to use. We put drying equipment in, fans, commercial dehumidifiers. So 13% of that is the hard moisture to get out, and we have to know how to set that equipment up, and make sure the fans are facing the right way, depositing. The fans create evaporation, which puts moisture into the air, and then that deposits into our physical mechanical removal method or a dehumidifier.
Yeah.
So then we just pump that back down the drain, and life is good.
You got yourself one high-tech squeegee, don't you?
That's exactly what it is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's mounted on a $70,000 vacuum that's parked in your driveway.
All right.
Yeah.
So Denny, show a little respect when you
talk
about Kevin's equipment.
Now I'm going to start saying, "We'll come squeegee out your basement."
Yeah, the flash extractor. Okay, inject the dry systems, Kevin. Have at it.
That thing's really cool. It can be one of my favorite, one of the nicest. I shouldn't even say this, but I will. One of the nicest. Go down for lunch or dinner in town. They have a wood floor that frequently floods, whether it's their maintenance people or the bartender left the tap on.
Yeah.
But there's water damage that occurs a lot. So we can put this inject dry system. It has floor drying mats that puts reverse or negative airflow through the wet building materials and dry out that floor in a matter of days, as opposed to tearing up the wood floor, having a construction project. So that's one of the uses of injected dry. And the theory that I follow is wet can go to dry if you let it. So wet materials can dry if you let it. And I didn't come here to give a religious soapbox or a sermon.
No, quite all right.
But in the history of the world's time, there was a creative period where the water covered the earth and it got dry. And the reason I know it got dry is because I didn't get wet walking from my vehicle in here. So there was a process, and I believe that was heat and airflow that creates dry things. And the reason I believe that is my clothes dry in the dryer that way. My wife uses a hair dryer. I used to, but I don't have that much hair anymore. But a hair dryer, heat and airflow dries out wet things.
Uh-huh.
So that same idea, that same technology, you put your clothes out on the clothes iron to dry in the weather. So we can control the environment. With the injector dryer, we control where that environment is focusing its energy, and we use that energy to release moisture, and that's how we dry out that. So the injector dryer is really cool technology. And the other use of it is you can use it as a wall drying or a ceiling drying system.
Very good.
And the reason I use that equipment and technology is it eliminates unnecessary construction projects. We don't have to dry or tear out drywall. We can dry it as long as it's not distorted and it looks fine. Even if insurance says they'll pay for it, we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
We can dry it out.
That's got to be a source of comfort to customers that need that, I would think.
Yeah, especially on a real estate situation.
Yeah.
Usually when we get involved, they've already had inspections, their closing dates near into the future, and now we have a problem that needs to get worked on. That allows us to be a little bit quicker and meet the deadlines for Diane's people in her office.
Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate and our guest, Kevin Noland, the owner of Damage Control here in Missoula. Also, a special thank you to some of Diane's marketing partners that help bring you Missoula Real Estate Today. Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage, Miles Link of Opportunity Bank of Montana, and Carol Blodgett from MakeItMissoula.com. Let's move on to one, Kevin, that nobody wants to think or talk about. Sewage water removal. That has to be a horrifying thing for home and business owners to think about. Is that pretty common? What are some of the typical causes of that?
We just today, this afternoon, I need to give the key back to a property owner on one we completed. In that situation, every year they have the drain cleaned out and snaked just for preventative. For some reason, it didn't happen this year, and tree roots grew into the sewer system,
Sure.
and that caused a backup, and that was really nasty and gross. My favorite thing to do when a call comes in for sewage backup is not answer my phone. But I don't know that's what the call is until I answer it. It's gross.
Do you mean to tell me your flash extractor or inject-to-dry system does not detect who's on the phone? Is that what you're saying?
I wished it did. I wished I could get some sort of
upgrade, Kevin.
Thermal imaging on that.
Yeah.
No, that's sewage is the one nobody wants
Absolutely.
to deal with. And it's we come to somebody's house on the worst day because their house, they can't live in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to take care of it so they can be comfortable back in warm, dry, safe, clean. Take care of the house.
Let's talk about a success story you can share, if you will. Are there any jobs that you've done recently that really gave you a little extra satisfaction when you got the job done to perfection?
Yeah, it was. There was one, a real estate listing. It was a situation where there's a significant change in the life of the occupants, and they were going to downsize their house, and they had water coming in the basement. There's 1.5 to 2 feet of water standing, and they pumped it out. They had to help pump out the basement, get the water out of there, and the next day there was 2 feet of water again.
Oh.
And they were baffled. They did not understand. So an agent at Diane's office called and asked, Kevin, can you go look at it and just give us an assessment? I don't know what's going on out there. And it was really satisfying to me the day we had to tear out some building materials. We were wearing knee-deep boots and we were wet. It doesn't make sense to keep. It's like hitting your forehead on a brick wall. You keep doing that, you're not going to get a different result.
Right.
So number one rule that I said earlier is find the source of moisture and fix it. And I suspected that, as I drove into the property, there was a marsh, on that acre of land.
The detective work, yeah.
There was a creek running down the hillside, and I automatically suspected groundwater.
Yeah.
So as I approached the house, I saw they had some pump pits too close to the foundation, and it was running, and it was bringing water to the foundation, and for some reason those pumps couldn't keep up with the amount of water coming in, and that's how water got in the basement. They hired a geologist. They hired there's some specialty names of college degrees at university. I had no clue. Fluvial geomorphologist came in to talk about how water changed the course of, it eroded the ground to create more water to that basement. And what had happened over time when they built that house 30 years ago was you dig out, pour in cement, and then you build on top of it. But when water table rises, you're the low spot, so you're going to get water infiltration. So to change the drainage of that creek, that marsh, there's some environmental issues to be concerned about and deal with. But it was very satisfying the day I dug the right piece. I moved my shovel just by luck, and you could see a spring just coming in the foundation.
Yeah.
So I grabbed the homeowner, said, hey, very nice lady, come take a look at it. Here's exactly where your moisture's coming from. And as we did that, a frog swam in. It was, I couldn't have written a better script. It was perfect. And it was a neat moment because now we have it pinpointed. We know what to do. We can take extra measures to stop this from coming in. And that one was particularly satisfying.
Oh, no, thank you. That is a great success story. Of course, I'm sure you will acknowledge it does not always work that way. Sometimes in the face of adversity, you have to deal with that too. How do you address it on that side when let's say you think you got it and you didn't get it?
As much technology as I love to use, there's still the human element.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. One of my hobbies is refereeing high school football. There's still a human element in there. We don't always get it right. That's not a subject for debate, so don't call me about that. But, there is a factor where we might miss something. We might not get it right. In fact, my crew right this very minute is in a crawl space working on one that I didn't get right.
Oh.
We put in a system for if moisture evaporates with a humidistat controlled exhaust fan, and for one reason or another that system failed, and mold reoccurred in that crawl space. So the first question I would ask you is, at your job, when something doesn't go right, how do you respond, and what do you do to make sure that doesn't happen again? And so I tell people, if you have this situation, don't measure us by what went wrong. Mm-hmm. Measure us by what we do to make it right. And I think that goes for any service-related industry, any trade.
That's really well put. That's an excellent policy.
When we take thousands of dollars from some of these homes, and in this case, it was a very expensive project for that homeowner, and I didn't get it right. And we get over there as quick as we can, and hey, here's what we're going to do. There's no excuses. There's nothing. I messed up. And I've been doing this full time since 1997. I don't want to feel like I've seen it all. There's nothing I'm never going to. The day I quit learning, the day I quit experiencing new things is the day I need to reevaluate and step aside for a minute.
Good guy to know. Good guy to have a business card in your wallet for. Kevin Noland, the owner of Damage Control here on Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Believe it or not, man, out of time. If folks do need to get a hold of you, find out all the services you offer, contact information and all of that.
We do have a Facebook page that we try to update regularly,
okay.
And that's Damage Control LLC. You can search that. Our phone number to contact me, if you want to listen to my voicemail, it's 406-274-4168. Call or text that number. That's the easiest ways to get a hold of us. And then just give a friendly wave as you see us driving around town. I have had one homeowner pull me over on the highway. He waved me down and pulled right in front of me and stopped me like, what did I do wrong? So and that led to she was in a panic. And so anyways, you can try that. Not recommended, but phone number, that's the best.
You bet. Just remember Damage Control, folks, because if you got some damage, Kevin will control it. Kevin Noland with Damage Control. Thanks so much for coming back on the show. Appreciate having you in.
Appreciate you having me.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today. If you have any suggested topics for any future Missoula Real Estate Today programs or any questions about buying or selling, contact Diane Beck with Windermere Real Estate. Email DianeBeck@Realtor.com. or visit our website, homesinmissoula.com. That's homesinmissoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.